Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. As some of you know, we do about 3 webinars a month. The first Wednesday of the month is generally an overview of ClubExpress for people that are either very new to ClubExpress or are considering ClubExpress as an association management solution. On the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month, we generally do a deep dive of some sort into a particular type of functionality, or maybe it's a new version release and such. Today is one of those. We're going to be talking about actually several different pieces of functionality, but they're all revolve around how you manage payments, charges, and credits in your ClubExpress installation. And so we do a little introduction like this, and then I'll do a demonstration, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. Well, let's take a moment, do a little bit of housekeeping. All of the microphones are muted. So if you have questions, they should be entered into the chat window. And Samantha will be monitoring the chat window, and she will do her best to answer questions in real time. We'll revisit some of the questions at the end for anything that wasn't covered or answered in the webinar. And we will revisit those questions so the people that are watching the recording will have benefit of the answers. And speaking of a recording, all webinars are recorded and they are available on the Cool Stuff page along with our training tutorials. If you go to clubexpress.com and click on the Cool Stuff link at the top of the page, you come to this page, and on the left side there is a tab for webinars. And this is where you have the webinar upcoming schedule and a list of recorded webinars. And so you can look at the recent webinars and such. So this is an easy way for you to share these webinars with your colleagues. Also, just above the webinars tab, there's a video tutorials tab. And this way you can get to all of our video tutorials, and the video tutorials were also accessible on your control panel on the support tab. There's a list of all of the video tutorials. Now, all of our videos are actually published on YouTube. Make it very easy to get to. So if you go to one of our tutorials, if you click on the subscribe icon, and then perhaps click on the bell icon for notifications, this way you can get notified anytime a new ClubExpress video becomes published. So that way you don't have to try to keep up with it, it'll just let you know. And what we'd like you to do is, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working very well for you, we would like for you to go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these 3 review sites and give a review of how ClubExpress is working within your organization so that other people will have the benefit of your experience and how you're using ClubExpress. Today, we're going to be talking about these different ways of managing payments and credits and charges. ClubExpress keeps transactions and payments very separate, and this, I understand, is the correct accounting way of doing things. So in ClubExpress, what we call transactions are actually charges that are created, whatever a charge is being applied to a member, and this could be either done automatically or manually. So, for example, when somebody signs up through the membership wizard, a charge is set up. Either they are joining or they're renewing. A charge is created with the amount of the membership type or whatever else they've selected. And even if money's not due, a charge gets created with an amount of 0. So this could be a member signing up through the website, or it could be by an administrator who is adding or renewing a person through the member manager. And charges are also created automatically for other activities, like when somebody registers for an event, or when a donation is accepted, or store purchases are made, or maybe an ad hoc form with a fee is submitted. Or charges can just be assigned directly to somebody because maybe they broke a vase in the office or something like that. And similarly, credits are created automatically when refunds are issued for an event, or an administrator can issue a refund for whatever reason is appropriate. And we're going to take a look at a couple of those things. So we're going to be looking at 5 or 6 different areas. So I'm going to be whipping through this fairly quickly. We do have a video on this, and it's a 12-minute video. And I've squeezed an awful lot into those 12 minutes. So I'm going to try to cover much of what I did there here, but it takes a whole lot longer to do it here because it's going to be interactive as opposed to me just being able to cut between things. So I'm going to try to cover much of the same information. We're going to be looking at how to use the member manager to record payments. We'll look at things like creating credits and charges, how you do similar things in the non-member database. We'll look at the transaction search pending payments module. We'll look at the module that shows you who has open credits available to be applied to charges. And there's a module called multiple miscellaneous charges, where you can just select a bunch of people and say, I want to create a charge that goes to them. And then we'll just look at what some of the available reports are. In the member manager, we'll be looking at different payment options, both as a new member who's logging in and as an admin who's recording the receipt of a payment. We're going to add a charge and issue a credit and then see what the payment screen looks like after that charge and credit have been entered. And then we'll also show how a member can view their own financial data so that a member can look and see what transpired on their accounts and get receipts and things like that. So they don't have to bother you to go get an information. If they say, I need a receipt for something, you can actually say to the members, you can get this on your own. And in the non-member database, I'll show how you get to do some of those same things. Transaction search is a two-sided tool because it has transaction search where you can limit the transactions that you're looking at to a date range. We're going to view a receipt. We're going to look at some of the reports. But there's a bulk payments side to that where you select certain transactions and say, I just received the check that covers these 3 transactions. Maybe they're all part of a family, or maybe they all work for the same company. And we received the check that covers these transactions. Then we'll look at the open credits module where we'll look at some credits. We'll edit a credit and add a credit. Then we'll look at multiple miscellaneous charges, where we will create a charge and then say, here's a bunch of members that we want to receive this charge. And then we'll just look at the reports. So, time for me to share my screen. So I'm currently logged into one of our demo sites as Martin Smith. So he's an administrator. You can see that he has money due. And when a member logs in, they can see that they have money due. A little message pops up and asks them about it. And so we can say that, oh, he has an event registration here. And so he could make a payment anytime he wants. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump over to another browser. So I'm in Chrome on one browser. I'm in Edge on another browser. I'm going to log in as a member who signed up today. Now, in this particular case, the member is in what's called a pending state because for this particular member type, it requires administrator approval. So once the user submits the application, they go in as a prospective member. Once they've been approved, and if there's money due, they come out as a pending member. So if I come over here and I log in as this person, you'll notice that the only thing she can do is access the payment screen because she is not paid. The membership is not active yet. It's still pending. But what I wanted to show you here is that she only has one charge, which is a sign up, and it's got the membership itself, and there's a name badge and a coffee mug and a bunch of stuff, and the whole thing totals up $373. And her payment methods are credit card, PayPal, or she could send in a check or cash. So that's all she can do. And if she does the credit card, she fills out all the information, and she would submit it, and then she will have been paid. So now I'm going to jump back over to Martin Smith. Martin Smith is logged in. And when you go to the control panel, on the Money tab, this Money tab here, this is where we're going to be looking at 3 of the modules, the transaction search, the open credits, and the multiple miscellaneous charges. But before we get to those, I want to show you what you can do in the member manager and the non-member database. So if we go to the People tab and go to Member Manager, you can search for your members. So I'm just going to click on Search. And if we look at Audrey, which is that member that we were just looking at, you'll see that anybody who owes money will have a $, a payments icon next to their name. So if I click on the payments, I get exactly the same screen that she got, because maybe she sent in a check, or maybe she sent in cash, or maybe there's some other way I need to process this. Maybe I want to comp her the account. So because I'm an administrator here, or because if I was a coordinator of this module, I have various ways of accepting the money. Say, okay, I received credit card, I received check, I received cash. And if it's a credit card, I would enter that same information that she had provided to me, because maybe she gave me that information at an event or something like that. And if I receive a check, we've got the check number that you ask for, or cash. So any one of these things, if it's a write-off, maybe it's a bad debt. You wouldn't typically do this for a new member registration, but it might be for some charge that is owed. You can do it through PayPal if that's set up. You can do a comp, which just means this is complimentary. We're just not charging them for it. Or it might be something that was processed by another system. They paid it maybe to some other organization, and you just have to record that it was paid. Or maybe this is in a subgroup. Maybe you received this money from a chapter. So they paid their money to one of your chapters, and the chapter forwarded it to you. So that's the way you would pay it. And if I, say, received cash here and I accepted it, then she would just be a full active member, because it went from, as I say, being a pending member here. See, it was pending. As soon as she pays for it, it will become activated, or I could activate it. So that's how you would deal with a new member. And so anybody that's got a $ next to them, you can take a look at what they owe, and you can say that, oh, I'm going to record a payment. One thing that I do want to show is, well, I'll do it on this one here. If we look at the payments for Bill Alexander, he's got a couple of things going on here. He owes for an event registration, a $430 event, and another one for $50. And as soon as he selects one or more of these, you'll see down here this changes a little bit. And what's happening here is just saying, do you have a coupon code? Because on this website, we have discount coupons enabled. And discount coupons allow you to issue coupons that people can apply. So if you wanted to do like an early registration coupon for a particular event, you could say, here's a coupon code that you can enter when you're paying, and you'll get $25 off the event registration, or whatever it needs to be. It could be a percentage off. But what you can do here is you can select one or more of them. When you don't have them selected, the discount coupon does not apply. And you can also decide, maybe you just want to make a payment for these two here, but I don't have $420, but I want to come over here and I want to pay $100 towards this one, and I want to pay $25 towards this one, because certain things allow you to make partial payments. And so you could decide, of this, I want to pay $125. You'll notice that he already has a credit, and there may be lots of different reasons why he has a credit. So this credit would normally be applied, but he could also say, oh, I only want to use $10 worth of my credit. I don't want to use my entire credit at this time. So I only want to use $10 of it. So his net would be $115. So at that point, you or he could go and say, okay, that's what I received. I received cash, I received the check, or whatever. So this is the way his payment would work. And if he selected this money would be applied to these transactions, but they would not be paid in full yet. So I'm going to back out of this for a moment. I'm just going to cancel this. I'm just going to say pay later. All right. The reason I wanted to show you that one was because we're going to add a charge and a credit to Bill. So we're looking at the Bill Alexander here. We've already looked at the dollar icon, but if we come over here, we can issue a charge or a credit for him. So when I click on this, we decide, is this a charge or is this a credit? If we do a charge, I say, okay, when's the date of the charge? And we'll just leave that for today. And what kind of a charge is this? Maybe he lost his name badge. And we'll say name badge replacement. And if I save this, that charge has now been put onto his account. And we'll look at it in a moment. But now let's also issue him a credit. So let's make this for, well, they could be for services. So say Bill was very nice and he went and picked up somebody at the airport for us to attend an event. So we're just going to say it's for services, but it might be because it was a prepayment or they paid too much money. You want to issue them a credit, money that they can use against current or future transactions. Now, when you issue a credit like this, or if you say it's a refund, no money is actually refunded. It's simply available as a credit for them to use, unless, of course, you say, okay, it's a refund, and now we're going to send them a check. But this is just, we're just going to say for services, and we're going to say this is $30 for airport transportation. And then we decide which financial account we want this to be. And so let's just call this, I'd call for the annual conference, because that's what it was for. And if we're using QuickBooks, we'd have to put it in the QuickBook items name. So we save that. So now if we go and look at Bill's account, see a couple of things. The miscellaneous charge for the name badge shows up, and where he had $60 credit before, and now he has a $90 credit. So here, if I say I want to come over, and I haven't done this in testing before, but if I say I want $100 here, and I want to pay $10 on this one here, and I want to pay this in full, and I want to use $20 of my credit. And if I tell the system, what happened here? Oh, I did it before I selected it. So I got to select them first. Then here I'll do the $20. Okay, so now we've got all of this. And now I'm going to say, because I'm Martin Smith, I received cash. And if I record the cash payment, now if we go look at Bill Alexander's activity here, payment here, you'll see what is left. So he still has $330 due of the $430. He still has $30 due of the original $50. And so you can see that all of this stuff happens in real time. So, and he had paid for the name badge. So you don't have to keep track of all this stuff. When somebody sends it in, you just have to record what was received, how much was received, and what is being applied to. And the system is handling all the rest of the bookkeeping for you. If Bill Alexander, if we want to look at his transactions, we can go over here into his profile and look at the transaction history. So we can see the event registrations, the miscellaneous charges. And if I go back a page and we look at the payment credit history, so we're seeing that he just, because of these were different transactions, for that key, we can look at the receipt. For this one here, if you click on receipt, it will show everything here, the event registration, the miscellaneous charges, what was applied, what the amount, how much was applied, the amount, how much was applied. So you can see if Bill needed a receipt for the cash he gave you, either you or he could print the receipt. Again, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. Now, what happens for somebody that's not a member? Say you have a non-member that made a donation or something like that. You can go to the non-member database, and this is probably going to show a lot of noise here because we've got all these fake accounts. Similarly, if they owe money, you can click on the $ and it will bring up their payment screen, just as it would be for them. Let's go back to the same one here. You'll notice that we don't have a whole lot of icons here So what you can do is you can click on this icon here called More Options, which presents a menu. So here, since you can't go to their profile, here's where you could go to transaction history, payment history. You could issue a charge or credit here. Rather than make this very, very wide, because there are a lot of things that you can do, made it a drop-down menu for the things that you are less likely to need to get to. Okay, so much for the member manager and the non-member database. Let's go back to the control panel's Money tab. And let's look at the transaction search. So this is transaction search and pending payments. So let me show you something that people may not have noticed. A few weeks ago, we added a new feature. If you're an admin or coordinator, there is now a favorites link at the top where you can go and say, oh, I use a particular module a lot. For example, maybe I administer discount coupons a lot. So you could bring these over here and you can say, oh, I do that a lot, so I'm going to put it over here. And so now I can come over here and just click on this and go to discount coupon administration directly without having to go to the control panel or saving a favorite. So these are favorites that are strictly administrative screens. And so similarly, if I want to go to this screen here, it's a little odd that it is actually called pending payments. But I'm just going to do it from here. So what I'm going to do is this screen switches between pending payments, which are the transaction payment search, and bulk payments. So when you switch them, you'll see that the title here changes, the description changes from transaction payment to bulk payments. We're going to start with transactions. You could decide, do you want all transactions? Do you want paid only or unpaid only? Do you want it for everyone or just for members or just for non-members? And I'm just going to put in a custom date range here just because there's so much junk data here. And you cannot go beyond today's date. So if you try to put in a date beyond that, it'll complain. And I'm going to sort by transaction date reference number. So now if I click search, we get a couple of things here. Oh, somebody signed up today with a fake name. So these are the transactions that have occurred in the last week or so. And because we said that these are, we want all transactions, we get the ones without the dollar sign, which means these are paid. And the ones with the dollar sign mean that they are still open. If we click on, say, let's look at this one here for Audrey. Again, you can look at the receipt for it, which is what we saw before. We can go in and register the payment like we saw before. And we can look at a couple of invoices. So if I click on invoice, there are a couple of different kinds of invoices. So for example, if we have one about this particular transaction, if I click on next and I run the report, you'll see that it is an invoice for this specific item. Whereas if I go to Bill Alexander and run a report called a member invoice, what it will do is it will aggregate all of those open items. So you see that this event registration is still open. It shows the amount that's already been paid, how much is due, the amount already been paid, how much is due. Then you've got a total balance, the available credit, and how much is due. This shows you the difference between the different types of reports. Again, this is a very nice way of saying, okay, just show me who owes me money. And so if you come over here and say unpaid only and search, whoops, that's from a little earlier today. Oops. See what happens when you try to go beyond the date. So now you'll see it's only those that are unpaid. So now let's go to bulk payments. You have to click on search. So this is where you can select people, select transactions, and say, oh, we received the check that covers this. Say that Audrey and Xavier were both from a particular company and you wanted them to join. So we can say that, oh, all right, so we received the check that covers that. We received the check for $827. If I click on bulk payments, it'll say, okay, how did we receive this? Okay, we received this check. We received it today. It was check number 1234 or 113 from City Services. And if we apply the payment, those two records disappear because they're no longer outstanding. So there's nothing to pay against. On the other hand, you could have something like for Bill Alexander, you could click on invoices. Oh, you have to select them first. So if I click on this here and I click invoices, this one will be an invoice for this one transaction. But if I say I want a grouped invoice, let's assume I want that one, and Wallace, and this here. Now, if I say I want a group invoice, it will make invoices for all of those that we had selected. So for Amy and Barbara and Bill, they're all get together. Again, this is really good if you're sending it to a family or if you're sending it to a company where they need an invoice so that they can pay a bill, which may be how you're facilitating the bulk payments. Notice that when you do an invoice, nothing gets flagged as being paid because you're just sending out a bill. You're not recording a payment.
Alan, while you're on the transaction search page, I had a great question. Viewing transactions that have a charge only as opposed to all transactions, which may include those which don't have a charge, such as events that don't have a charge associated with them.
Well, events that don't have a charge actually do have a charge, but it's a charge of $0. So with this, we could say, if you want something that is unpaid, you would have to search that way. So if I search here, this will show anything that has an outstanding amount. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense to say, well, if you do all transactions imply that there was some amount for them, but it might be an amount of $0, but it is still registered in the book that they register for an event, did not have to pay for it, or some other, there are other things that have no charge. So transactions are all about charges and credits. So the only time it would be here is if there was a charge listed, even if it's $0. But if you say unpaid, it will look for only those with outstanding balances. And if it's paid only, then you can see the ones that have already been paid. Even if it's a charge of $0, it will show up as being paid. If I take out the date range, let's do it maybe in the last quarter. Well, let's do last month. So you see here, this was an event registration that was $0 and its status is no charge, as opposed to this one where your status is paid. Or if we go back to this week, you'll see that we have some that are unpaid or have partial payment. So it's showing you what the amount was and how much has been paid and how much is due. Let's go back to the control panel and look at the open credits screen. So open credits are all those people who have credits outstanding, meaning available to be used. Bill Alexander, just today, you'll see the credit we gave him, $30, was for this airport transportation. But he also had a credit from before for shopping for flying supplies and for shopping for the club. He's been very nice to the club, and we've been covering his expenses and such. But say we have somebody here who, this Brett Abrams, he did videography and photography for an event that we did. And rather than accepting money, he just said, okay, just issue it a credit, and then, I can register people for events and stuff like that. I just want the club to hold on to the money. And so he has a balance of $1,400. And Bill Alexander, as you can see, he had already applied $20 of this one. It looks at I guess the moment the outstanding balance, and we'll just start exhausting them. Although it did show that they had the $90 originally and show what was left. So for any one of these things here, you could go and change it by clicking on edit. Now you have to decide what you're doing. Are you just editing it? So you're just changing it. Maybe you have to change the credit type or what account that needed to go into. Are you actually refunding it? If you are actually refunding it, it says it marks the balance as having been refunded. But remember, ClubExpress isn't doing anything other than recording that you said it was refunded. Any refunds actually have to be handled by the club's treasurer. Or it might be that you're waiving the balance. Maybe the member has said to you, listen, I've got this credit. I don't want to use it anymore. I'm just going to waive it. In effect, donating it back to the club. And then there's a cancel, where you're just going to cancel the credit entirely. It's like it was a mistake, perhaps. So you can edit it that way. Now, on any one of these things, I just want to show that if you click on the help screen, and you should be doing this on a fairly regular basis, it will show you exactly what the things that you can do here are. So when in doubt, ask the system for help. So this is how you can get an idea of what your open credits are and what the credit totals are, how much has been issued, and how much is still outstanding. You can also here add a credit. So we can, unlike before where you were adding a credit for a specific member, here we would specify a member. Let's go to Callie. And you say, I want to give her $10 to resolve a complaint. Too cold for her. This is just a way of saying, go away, for the annual conference. And we save that. And so now it shows up here. And you'll see that these are in alphabetical order by member last name. So that's what you would do to add a credit. All right, whipping through it. Come down to the end. Miscellaneous charges. Miscellaneous charges is a way where you can create a charge and assign it to one or more people in bulk. So if we want to say this fund surcharge, and we're going to call this $35, and it's going to go into, I don't know which account. Let's just do it, external fees. Now, here's where you select people. If you click on the letter range, it'll show you all of the people that are within the letter range. If you click on them, you can then click on save, and it will actually issue the charge. But if you click on another one here and you click on it, unless you save it, nothing happens. So if I go back to the E and F, you'll notice that they're deselected. So whenever you switch from one to the other, you need to apply it to the letter range that you were looking at. Or if it's a small club, you can click on show all. And you might say, oh, I want this one, that one, that one. You know, it doesn't help if you've got hundreds of members in your club, but if you've got a 30-member club, you can sit here and say, these are the people that I want to apply the credit to. And so if I go here, and I have to go way down to the bottom of the page, and you can also check and uncheck all. If I click on save, it says 5 members are selected. Do you want to continue? Sure. So theoretically now, if I go back to the people and member manager, and I look at Audrey, since she already paid her bill, now this miscellaneous charge is applied to her as well as those other people. That's all you would do in this thing here. And then just so you can take an idea, if you go to the money tab, you have a couple of reports. We'll ignore the member invoice for a moment, but if you want to look at transaction payments by account, you can get transactions or user payments, and you decide which account. Now, these are financial accounts. Now, we haven't talked about the difference between bank accounts and financial accounts. That's our next webinar, and that's a video that's going to get published today. In fact, if I show you this here, this one here is the tutorial based on the information that we're covering today, called Managing Payments, Charges, and Credits. And this one here will be published a little later today, called Bank Accounts and Financial Accounts. And that also talks about some of these reports. But here, remember, this is a demo club, so it doesn't have real information in it. But you can see that you can get reports, in this case, user transactions by financial account. So there's an annual conference account, and there's membership dues for Washington, and there's Chicago membership dues and such. And there are reports from member user transactions by type and chapter and such. Then there's ClubExpress transactions, which has got to do with how much money you have paid to ClubExpress, whether your monthly fees or processing fees, or maybe you subscribe to the ad hoc reporting module or any one of the other optional modules. And then you've got user payments and credits, a whole range of reports here. So, Samantha, what have we got going up in the chat room?
We had a couple of questions about transaction searches, which one of them I had you go through.
Right.
And we did get one question that just came in about different types of banking accounts and setting up different accounts. And I let them know that we were going to be doing a webinar and tutorial on that very soon.
Yep.
So
I'll just show you, give you a little tickler. We have bank accounts, which are the places where money will be deposited into. And you can see that we've got new accounts that need verification. We have an active account. We've got some accounts that need verification, again, because they have been changed. So you have bank accounts, which are the places that will actually be where money's going to get deposited, whether it be from credit cards or whatever. And then you have what's called financial accounts, which map to those bank accounts. So in this case, we've got these financial accounts. So this annual conference will go to, if we looked at this, we say, I want this to go to the annual conference account, but it might have gone to the fundraising account. So these are the different bank accounts, or we could say, oh, use whatever the primary account is. And so anything without an account name in here, we'll use the primary account. But so this way, even if everything's going into the same bank account, maybe you want to have these different financial accounts so that you can keep track of what's going into our magazine subscriptions, what's going in for our events and such. And so we'll talk about a bunch of these things in the next webinar, and also in that tutorial that should be published a little later today.
And one question that did just come in, deleting or canceling pending payments. So one user asked that. I don't know if they're referring to that in the member manager, which is really easy to do, or if they're referring to it when a member is actually on the payment page, which would simply just be exiting out of the page before.
Yeah, if the member's on there, they can simply say, I want to pay later. So if I go back to this other member, this Audrey, and I refresh this page, now it shows here, and then she can print an invoice, or she can print the page, or she can't submit payment now because she hadn't selected a payment method, and she can print an invoice. So she can decide that she doesn't want to do it right now. If you want to forgive an item, let me go back to the other one here. If you want to look at the member manager and forgive it, you can't just delete it. You can't pretend that it never happened. But what you can do is you can just say, we're writing it off, or we're just going to do a comp. Or you could enter a credit to say, okay, see, either you're going to pay for it, or you're going to issue a credit that can be used against it. But you can't just say the thing never happened. The accountants don't like that. What else do you have?
That is about it. We had a pretty active group today.
Yeah, but fortunately, we must have covered a lot of the things that were asked in the chat room during the webinar. I know that it's a lot of information that we covered. So thank you, everyone, for coming, and hopefully we'll see you in the next webinar.